The echo of the gavel reverberates through the courtroom, its sound a cold reminder that justice has been dealt. The judge's verdict is final, and yet the air is thick with uncertainty. John, barely holding back tears, stares at the ground, his face pale as a ghost. He knows the system has failed him. A man condemned for a crime he did not commit. At the back of the room, Emily's hand trembles slightly as she clutches the papers in her hands, her heart heavy with the weight of a decision she's about to make. Beside her stands Sarah, arms crossed, her youthful face a mask of defiance. "This isn't over," she whispers, though doubt lingers in her voice. The entire courtroom, a sea of judgment, watches them as they prepare to face an impossible task. John looks up, his eyes burning with an anger he can no longer suppress. Fire in his gaze tells them all this isn't the end. It's just the beginning. The courtroom is empty, save for the soft shuffling of papers and the sound of footsteps echoing down the cold halls. John, sitting in the dimly lit hallway, stares ahead, numb. His mind races, replaying every word spoken during the trial. "It's not over," he repeats to himself, trying to convince himself that justice is still within reach. But doubts cloud his thoughts. Emily walks toward him, her heels tapping on the floor with measured confidence. She's calm, but John knows better. She's as shaken as he is, hiding it behind a veneer of professionalism. "I'll make sure this doesn't slip through the cracks," Emily says, her voice steady, yet there's a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Sarah stands nearby, watching them both. Her arms are crossed, eyes narrowed, and her youthful defiance remains unshaken despite the chaos. "We don't have time to waste," Sarah says, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. She's right. The clock is ticking, and every moment wasted brings them closer to a justice that may never come. Later that night, the investigation takes a new turn. John, Emily, and Sarah meet in a small, dimly lit office. The walls are cluttered with files and evidence. A map of the city is pinned to the corkboard, dotted with pushpins marking potential locations. "We've got something," Emily says, pulling a file from the stack. She places it on the table between them. Sarah leans forward, her eyes wide with curiosity. This could be the breakthrough we need," Sarah says, pointing to a piece of evidence on the page. It's a photograph of a man John doesn't recognize, but the name written beneath it sends a chill down his spine. "What is this?" John asks, his voice low and filled with dread. Emily looks at him, her face solemn. "It's someone who might know more about what happened that night, someone connected to the people who framed you." John's mind races, but he knows this is the lead they've been searching for. The path forward is fraught with danger, but it's the only one they have. The following day, Emily sets up a meeting with a former colleague, someone she trusts. John and Sarah wait in the car outside a nondescript building on the outskirts of town. "This is our chance," Emily had said, her tone grave. John looks out of the car window, his gaze distant, consumed by the possibility of betrayal, of lies woven so tightly around him that they could suffocate him. Sarah, restless as ever, taps her foot impatiently on the floor. "What if this guy's just another dead end?" she mutters, glancing at John. He doesn't answer. His mind is elsewhere. Inside, Emily walks into the building, her posture unwavering, but her heart races with the risk she's about to take. She knows she's pushing the limits, but she also knows there's no turning back. The door closes behind her with a soft click, and the waiting begins. Minutes feel like hours. The door to the building opens, and Emily steps out, her face pale, her eyes wide. She walks towards the car with quick steps, her hands trembling. She gets in without saying a word, and Sarah watches her carefully, her curiosity piqued. "What happened?" Sarah asks, breaking the silence. Emily doesn't immediately respond. John turns to face her, his heart pounding in his chest. "Tell me, Emily," he urges, his voice soft but full of desperation. Emily takes a deep breath before speaking. "He confirmed it," she says, her voice barely a whisper. "The people who framed you, they're connected to someone much bigger, someone we didn't expect." John feels a knot tighten in his stomach. "Who?" he he asks, barely able to form the words. Emily looks at him, her face drawn, the weight of the truth settling in. It's someone from your past, someone you trust. The next day, John, Emily and Sarah meet at a small rundown cafe in the outskirts of town. The sun barely peeks through the clouds, casting a dreary gray light over the street. John stirs his coffee absent-mindedly, his mind still reeling from the revelations. "We can't keep going like this," John mutters, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Emily looks up from the pile of documents in front of her, her brow furrowed. "We have no choice. The moment we stop, they win," she says, her voice firm but laced with uncertainty. Sarah, sitting across from them, taps her fingers impatiently on the table. "We need to move fast," she says, her tone sharp. "Every second we waste could be one where they cover their tracks further." John nods slowly, the weight of his situation settling deeper into his chest. The truth is slipping further from his grasp, but he's not ready to let go. Not yet. As the day goes on, they track down a lead, a former employee who may know more about the people behind the framing. They arrive at a rundown warehouse on the edge of town. The building is dark and silent, its windows covered in grime. "This is it," Emily says, her voice tight with anxiety. They step out of the car and approach the building, John's hand instinctively moving to the pocket where his phone rests. "If this is a trap," Sarah begins, her voice cutting through the silence. "It won't be," Emily responds, though her own doubt is clear in her eyes. They reach the door, and Emily knocks firmly, the sound echoing in the still air. The seconds stretch into minutes. A figure finally emerges from the shadows, a man in his early 40s, tall and rugged, with a scar running across his cheek. "You're late," he growls, his voice low and gravelly. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of dust and old machinery. The man who opens the door, Marcus, motions for them to follow him into the dark interior. "You better be quick. I don't want anyone finding out I'm talking to you," Marcus says, his voice rough. Emily steps forward, her eyes narrowed, and John follows closely behind. Sarah lingers at the back, her senses alert. They move deeper into the warehouse, the silence of the building broken only by their footsteps. Marcus leads them to a back room, filled with boxes and crates stacked high. "What do you know about the people who framed me?" John demands, his voice low and controlled. Marcus hesitates, then looks over his shoulder, as if making sure no one is listening. "I know enough to get you killed, but I can't stay silent anymore," he says quietly, his voice barely a whisper. He points to a box in the corner. "Start there." As Marcus opens the box, the rusted metal lid creaks, and a small stack of photographs and documents is revealed. He pulls out a photo of a man John has never seen before, but the name written on the back sends a chill through him. "This is the man who's behind everything," Marcus says, his voice gravely serious. Emily leans in, examining the photograph. "Where did you get this?" she asks, her tone sharp. "It doesn't matter where I got it," Marcus replies. "What matters is that he's the one who's been pulling the strings. The same people who framed you, they've been working with him for years." John's hand trembles as he takes the photo from Marcus, his mind racing. "Who is he?" he asks, his voice barely audible. Marcus looks at him, his eyes dark. "Someone you've trusted, someone close to you." The revelation leaves John reeling. He stares at the photo for a long time, his hands shaking as he holds it in front of him. Emily places a hand on his shoulder, trying to steady him, but John pulls away. "No, it can't be. Not him." Sarah watches quietly, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "Who is it, John?" she asks, her voice soft. John's eyes are haunted as he looks up at them both. "It's someone from my past. Someone I trusted completely," he says, his voice breaking. The weight of the betrayal crashes down on him. "If we're going to stop this, we need to find him. We need to expose everything." Emily nods solemnly, her face hardening with determination. "Then let's do it, before it's too late." The next day, John, Emily, and Sarah sit in the cramped office, poring over the information they've gathered. Tensions are high, but they are making progress. Emily flips through a stack of documents, her eyes scanning each page for any hint of the person they need to find. This guy has been covering his tracks for years, she mutters, slamming the file shut. It's like he's invisible. John's frustration boils over. We can't afford to waste time. Every minute is a minute they have to erase any trace of their involvement. Sarah, sitting across from them, looks at the map spread out on the table. We need to focus. We're close, I can feel it. Just one more push, she says, pointing to a location marked in red. Emily glances at the map, then at John. It's risky, but it's the only lead we have. We go tonight. John takes a deep breath, nodding. Let's do it. Later that evening, they arrive at a small abandoned building on the outskirts of town. The streets are empty, the air thick with the smell of rain. This is it, Emily says, her voice steady but laced with doubt. The man we're looking for used to work here. They step out of the car, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the quiet street. You sure this is the right place? John asks, his voice low. We're here, Sarah responds, glancing around cautiously. It's too quiet. Emily steps forward, her hand hovering near the door handle. We have no choice but to go in, she says, glancing back at John and Sarah. They share a look of determination before Emily pushes the door open. The building creaks in protest, and they step into the darkness, unaware of the danger that lies ahead. Inside, the air is stale and thick with dust. The beam from their flashlights cuts through the darkness as they step cautiously through the building. It's been years since anyone's been in here, Emily says, her voice echoing in the empty space. John's eyes dart around, his mind on high alert. Keep your eyes open, he mutters. If this was a trap, we're walking right into it. The sound of their footsteps reverberates in the silence. Sarah leads the way, her eyes sharp as she scans the area. There's something off about this place, she says, pausing in front of a door that leads to a basement. Emily moves up beside her, flashlight steady. Stay close, Emily warns. As they open the door, a sudden noise causes them all to freeze. It's a soft, distant sound, like someone moving in the dark. As they descend into the basement, the air grows colder, the darkness more suffocating. They reach the bottom, and John's breath catches in his throat. There, in the far corner, a figure is hunched over a table, scribbling notes. The man looks up suddenly, his eyes wide with shock. You shouldn't have come, he says in a low voice, standing quickly. This is bigger than you think. Emily steps forward, her hand on her gun, but she's cautious. Who are you working for? She demands. The man's eyes flicker to John, and then back to Emily. I don't know what you think you know, but it's more dangerous than you realize. John steps forward, his heart pounding. Tell me everything, now. The man hesitates, then slowly begins to speak, his voice trembling as he reveals more than they expected. With the new information, they rush back to the car, their minds racing with the implications of what they've just learned. He's been working with people who are untouchable, Emily says, her voice tight. The people who framed you, John, they're just pawns in a much larger game. John's mind spins as he processes the revelation. Who are they working for? He asks. The man wouldn't say, Emily responds, frustration in her voice. But it's clear now. We're not just fighting for justice. We're fighting to expose a system that's been corrupt for decades. The drive back feels endless. John can't shake the feeling that they're being watched. Sarah sits in the back seat, her fingers tapping nervously on the window. We have to act fast, she says, her voice sharp. They're closing in. The investigation has reached a tipping point. John, Emily, and Sarah are sitting in the darkened car, parked in an alley, a few blocks away from a high-rise building. We're about to meet someone who could change everything, Emily says, her voice firm but tinged with uncertainty. If this works, we'll have the leverage we need. John shifts uneasily in his seat. I don't like this. The stakes are too high. Emily meets his gaze, her expression hard. We don't have a choice. We go in, get the information, and leave. No one gets hurt. Sarah, always restless, looks out the window. I don't trust him, she says quietly. None of this feels right. Emily exhales slowly, nodding. It's not about trust, it's about survival. The words hang in the air as the tension in the car mounts. This could be the moment everything changes, or the moment they lose everything. They enter the high-rise building, its glass doors gleaming in the harsh fluorescent light. The lobby is sleek and modern, but the coldness of the space feels out of place. Stay close, Emily warns, her voice low. John nods, his eyes flicking around the room, alert to any potential threat. They reach the elevator and ascend to the top floor, where they are greeted by a man in a well-tailored suit. I was wondering when you'd show up, he says, his tone smug, but not entirely unfriendly. You've made quite the mess. Emily stands tall, her expression unyielding. We're here for information. You'll give it to us, or I'll make you regret it. The man smirks, taking a slow step back. You don't know who you're dealing with, he warns. John clenches his fists, sensing the looming danger, but he's ready to face whatever comes next. Inside the luxurious office, the tension is palpable. The man, who introduces himself as Carter, takes a seat behind an oversized desk. I know what you're here for, he says, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the desk. But you're not going to get it so easily. Emily stands across from him, arms crossed. We're not here to play games, she responds, her voice low but steady. Carter leans back in his chair, studying them with cold, calculating eyes. You think you're in control of this situation? He says with a smirk. You're already too far in. It's too late to turn back. John takes a step forward, his fists clenched. Tell us what we need to know. Now. Carter laughs softly, clearly enjoying the power he holds over them. I'll tell you what you want. But there's a price, he says, his voice suddenly colder. Emily and John exchange a look. They're not sure how much they're willing to pay for the truth. Carter's smirk fades as he leans forward, his expression turning serious. You think you're the only ones after the truth? He says quietly. There are people much more dangerous than me, people who have been controlling things from the shadows for decades. Emily's eyes narrow. Who? She demands, her voice sharp. Carter hesitates for a moment, his gaze flickering to the door as if he's unsure whether or not to continue. You want names, he asks, his voice barely above a whisper. You've already met them, but you still don't know the full story. John steps forward, his patience running out. Stop with the games, Carter. Tell us what you know. Carter leans back in his chair, his eyes cold. It's all connected, every piece of this puzzle. But you won't be able to stop it once you're in too deep. As Carter's words sink in, the weight of the situation becomes clear. You're in over your head, Carter warns, his voice chilling. They'll come for you. They always do. Emily's eyes harden. Let them come, she says coldly, her tone unshaken. We'll be ready. Carter leans forward, his eyes gleaming with something dangerous. You have no idea what you're dealing with, he says. John's heart races as he takes in the full meaning of Carter's words. The realization hits him like a punch to the gut. They've been playing into the hands of people who are far more powerful than they ever imagined. We'll finish this, John says, his voice firm, though doubt gnaws at him. Carter gives them a small, knowing smile. I don't think you will, he says softly, his words lingering in the air as they leave the office. The battle is only beginning, and now, more than ever, they realize how high the stakes have become. The time has come. John, Emily, and Sarah stand in front of the courthouse, their faces a mix of determination and fear. Inside, the trial is about to begin, but this is more than just a court case. This is our last chance, John says, his voice low but resolute. Once the doors open, we either win or lose everything. Emily nods, her jaw tight with anxiety. We've come too far to back down now. No matter what happens in there, we stay focused. Sarah, standing beside them, shifts uncomfortably. I'm ready for this, she says, though there's a slight tremor in her voice. John looks at her, then at Emily, before pushing open the doors of the courthouse. The silence is overwhelming, as if the entire world is holding its breath. The trial has begun, and they know this will change everything. Inside the courthouse, the trial is in full swing. The prosecutor is on their feet, delivering their closing argument with force, accusing John of crimes he didn't commit. Emily sits beside John, her hand tightly gripping his, as if trying to anchor him to reality. "They're lying about everything," John mutters under his breath, his gaze fixed on the prosecutor. "It's all lies." Emily leans in closer, her voice a whisper. "We knew they'd do this. But we've got the truth on our side. We just need to keep pushing." Sarah, sitting behind them, watches the proceedings with a sharp eye, scanning the room for any sign of an opening. "We're not losing this," she says, her voice steely. The judge looks down at them, ready to give the final word. In this moment, everything they've worked for is on the line. The defense attorney rises to speak, their voice steady but forceful. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the truth is simple. My client, John, is innocent. The evidence presented here today does not support the allegations against him." John exhales, his heart pounding in his chest. He's been fighting for this moment, for this chance to clear his name, but now the pressure feels unbearable. Emily leans in, whispering, "You've got this, trust the truth." Sarah watches from the back of the room, her eyes narrowed as she assesses the situation. The jury looks on, their faces a mix of confusion and uncertainty, but there's a sense of something shifting in the air. The room feels electric, charged with the potential for either victory or defeat. The judge's gavel is about to fall, and their fate will be sealed in a matter of seconds. The jury deliberates for what feels like hours, the tension in the room building with each passing minute. John paces in the small waiting room, unable to sit still. "This isn't just about me anymore," he says, his voice raw. "It's about all of us. What happens here will decide everything." Emily watches him, her eyes filled with a mix of concern and determination. "We've done everything we can," she says softly. "Now we wait." Sarah stands by the window, her eyes fixed on the view outside. "I don't like this," she mutters, her hands clenched. "It feels like they're going to find a way to twist this." Emily walks over and places a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "We'll face whatever comes, together." The door to the courtroom opens, and the jury files in, their faces unreadable. This is it, the moment they've been waiting for. The jury returns and the room goes deathly silent. The woman stands and announces, "Will the jury find the defendant, John, not guilty?" A collective breath is held, and then the room erupts in a mix of relief and disbelief. John slumps in his seat, overwhelmed by the weight of the verdict. Emily and Sarah exchange a glance, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "It's over," Emily whispers, a small smile creeping onto her face. John looks at her, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "We did it," he says, his voice thick with emotion. The room begins to empty, but John, Emily, and Sarah remain, caught in the moment of their victory. They've fought for the truth, and against all odds they've won. The door to the courtroom closes, but the journey ahead is still uncertain. They've cleared one hurdle, but there will be more to come. The aftermath of the trial leaves John, Emily, and Sarah reeling. They're in the small, dimly lit office, the silence pressing down on them. The weight of the verdict still lingers in the air. "We won," John says quietly, but the words feel hollow, as if victory has come at too high a price. Emily looks at him, her face unreadable. "Winning doesn't always feel like winning," she says softly. Sarah, standing near the window, doesn't respond, her gaze distant. "What now?" John asks, his voice carrying the burden of uncertainty. "The battle isn't over," Emily replies, her voice firm but tinged with exhaustion. "We've uncovered part of the truth, but there's more to it." Sarah turns to face them, her expression hardening. "They won't stop. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." The tension is palpable, the war for justice is far from over. They meet again the next day, this time in a coffee shop. It's quieter here, but the weight of their conversation is still heavy. "We can't just go back to our lives," John says, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. What we've uncovered changes everything. Emily nods, taking a slow sip of her drink. It's bigger than any of us realized, she says, her voice steady. The system we've been fighting against, it's more entrenched than we thought. Sarah, sitting across from them, watches the people around her, her fingers tapping the edge of her cup. So, what do we do now? She asks. We keep going, Emily replies, her tone hardening. We dig deeper. We find out who's really pulling the strings. John looks out the window, his mind spinning. We fight back, he says softly, determination starting to build in his voice. We don't stop until we expose the whole truth. The investigation takes them to an underground network of information brokers. The air smells stale, and the lights flicker overhead as they enter a dimly lit building that feels more like a hidden world than a place of business. This is where it all begins, Emily says, her voice low. The connections we need are here. John nods, his eyes scanning the dark corners of the room. Do you trust these people? He asks, his voice tinged with doubt. Emily's expression remains stoic. I don't trust anyone, but we don't have much of a choice. Sarah looks around, her eyes alert, her body language tense. I don't like this, it's too quiet. They move deeper into the building, their footsteps echoing in the silence. We're getting closer, Emily says, her voice filled with a mixture of resolve and caution. We have to find out who's behind all of this. Inside the dimly lit room, they meet with an informant who seems to know far more than they expected. You're looking for answers, but answers come with consequences, he warns, his voice raspy. John steps forward, his eyes narrowing. We're ready to face whatever comes, he says firmly. The informant chuckles darkly, glancing at Emily and Sarah. You think you're in control, but trust me, you're just pawns in a much larger game. Emily takes a step forward, her hand resting on the table. Tell us what you know, she demands. The informant sighs, as if weighing the cost of revealing the truth. The people behind all of this are untouchable, he says. They've been operating in the shadows for decades, but there's one thing you don't know. His eyes flicker with something dangerous, and he leans in closer. Someone you trust is working with them. Back in the safety of their office, the weight of the informant's words hangs over them. Someone we trust? John repeats, his voice low. Emily sits at the desk, her fingers tapping rhythmically. I don't know who it is, but we need to find out fast. Sarah paces nearby, her frustration mounting. This is insane. We're already fighting an uphill battle, and now we have to deal with a mole. Emily looks up, her expression steely. We'll figure it out. We always do. John's hand clenches into a fist, his frustration bubbling to the surface. We can't afford any more distractions. We need to focus on the bigger picture. Emily stands and walks toward the door. Then we get back to work. We'll expose them all. The door closes behind them, but the uncertainty lingers as they know the real fight is just beginning. The final confrontation is upon them. John, Emily, and Sarah stand outside the sprawling corporate headquarters, the setting sun casting long shadows across the pavement. The air is thick with tension. This is it, John says, his voice steady but laced with anxiety. Tonight, everything changes. Either we expose them, or we're swallowed up by the system. Emily, her eyes scanning the building before them, nods in agreement. We've come this far. We won't stop now. Sarah, standing a little apart from them, looks up at the high-rise building with a mixture of defiance and dread. Let's just make sure we're ready for anything, she says quietly, her hands clenching into fists. They all know this will be their last shot at bringing the truth to light. Stakes are higher than ever, and they have no idea what lies ahead. But there's no turning back now. Inside the building, they make their way through the maze of corridors, the only sound the soft click of their shoes on the marble floors. We're almost there, Emily whispers, glancing over her shoulder to make sure no one is following. John's heart pounds in his chest. This is the moment we've been waiting for. They reach a secure elevator, the final hurdle between them and the information they need. Emily presses the button, and the doors slide open with a soft mechanical hiss. As they step inside, The tension in the air is palpable. Sarah glances nervously at the control panel. "What if we're too late?" she asks, her voice low. "We won't be," Emily responds with quiet confidence. "We've come this far. We're not turning back now." The elevator ascends in silence, the weight of what's about to happen hanging heavy between them. "Once we're inside, we move fast," Emily says, her voice quiet but firm. "We take what we need, and we get out." John nods, his jaw clenched. "And if they try to stop us?" he asks, his tone dark. "Then make sure they don't," Emily replies without hesitation. Sarah's eyes flicker to the control panel as the elevator continues its slow climb. "I still don't like this," she murmurs. "It feels like a trap." Emily turns to her, offering a small reassuring smile. "It's too late to turn back, Sarah. We're committed now." The elevator dings as they reach their floor, the doors sliding open to reveal a sleek high-tech office. This is where it all comes together, or falls apart. Inside the office, they find themselves face to face with the people who have been pulling the strings all along. The room is sleek, modern, and entirely impersonal. At the far end of the room stands a large desk, behind which sits a man they all recognize, someone they never expected to see here. "So, you've made it this far," the man says, his voice smooth but dripping with arrogance. "But you're too late." John steps forward, his face hard with determination. "No, we're right on time." The man laughs softly, but there's a coldness in his eyes. "You don't know who you're dealing with," he warns. "You've been pawns in a much bigger game." Emily narrows her eyes. "We're done playing games," she says coldly. "Tell us what we need to know." The final battle for the truth plays out in that sterile office, the stakes higher than they've ever been. "You think you can stop this?" the man sneers. "You're nothing." John's eyes flash with fury, but his voice is calm. "We're not here for your approval. We're here for justice." Emily steps forward, her gaze unwavering. "And we'll take it, no matter what you do to stop us." The man hesitates for a moment, then his expression darkens. "Then prepare for the consequences," he warns. The air is thick with tension as the final move is made. John, Emily, and Sarah know this is their last chance to expose the truth, and they're willing to risk everything to make sure it happens. The moment has arrived, and no matter the outcome, they're ready to face it together.